Have you ever thought about purchasing a Tesla? Or maybe you thought it was interesting, you hear about how they don't have a dealership or what that might be like? Well, I've got my buddy Josh here. We're going to dive into what the actual experience is like and how do you actually use a referral code and all of that. So with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam. For those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Josh, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Sam. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you just got a Tesla,
I did.
and quick before we dive into this, what is that? What was that like? Because I know we've been talking about Tesla for a little while at this point. So what was that like when you actually just picked yours up?
Well, I will say it was a dream come true. I had rehearsed that dream so many times in my head that my wife went with me. She said, "Are you excited?" And I said, "Yeah, it's not like a firecracker, like this rush of emotion. It's more like a slow burning, like I've expected this." It's just been cool. Every step of there'll just be moments. We picked it up 3 weeks ago. Just there'll be one part of every day where I'm just like, man, this is cool. This is just so cool. That's how it's been.
It's almost a different experience too, because I don't know about for you, but I don't buy a tremendous amount of things where 3 weeks later I still have those same tips of like, oh, this is so cool. Like I got this pen or even this phone, right? Like even like the novelty of a phone wears off. But it's interesting. 3 weeks later, it's still like, wow, this is so freaking cool. That never gets old. I've had mine for 30,000 miles, and I still think opening the front trunk or like getting into the white leather is awesome. So, why did you want a Tesla? I know you've wanted one for a while, but like, what was the top like couple reasons why you chose Tesla?
So I am in the Army Reserves. I had a guy in my reserve unit that bought one. He was one of the first people in 2017 when they first announced it. He was deployed, saved all his money, came home, and they were ready for delivery. So he picked up a model. It was a blue exterior, white interior Model 3 long range dual motor. And his first time there was in November in 2018. I saw it sitting there in the parking lot, and I'm like, whose car is that? And they told me whose it was. And I went up to him. He's a pretty high ranking officer. I said, "Hey, sir, can I go for a ride in your car?" And he's like, "Absolutely." And so he pulls out his phone. He shows me, he can turn on the heater, because it was November in New York. He turned on the heater and get all this stuff primed and prepped. And then he took me for a ride in it around the corner, and then he let me drive it. And I was just blown away by the experience of driving it. It was maybe 5 minutes. I had my phone out the entire time, taking all these videos. I actually have a YouTube video of my experience driving the car for the first time. And then like 2 hours later, we got released for the end of the weekend, and I drove home. And getting in my regular car after that was such a angering, upsetting experience, because I felt like I was going from like traveling in the future now to like a donkey that was pulling a cart, up the side of a canyon, being in my regular car. And from that moment, I said, I have to have one of these. Like just there's so many subtleties, let alone the obvious things that are cool about them, that just stood out to me that I could not stop thinking about.
Was that your first time learning about Tesla in general, or you had already known about Tesla and you knew exactly what it was when you saw it?
I had known about them, was kind of a fanboy just from, Elon Musk. I'd read a couple of books about him and heard some interviews. I knew that their cars were cool, but had not experienced them for myself. And so I was like, I want to dip my toe in the water and see what's going on here. So my knowledge was about that big. And then after that, it went way up after.
And it probably spiked the interest a lot in there as well.
Oh yeah.
That's very interesting, because you probably have heard this, even though it's been a short period of time. But one of the things that is common when people say, think about like why people want a Tesla, is because people think it's because it's a green vehicle. And I personally have not talked to one Tesla owner where that was the reason they purchased the vehicle. I didn't buy mine because there was green. You just told me, that's why I waited till after you answered. You didn't tell me you bought it because it was green. This was the authentic answer. You were like, it's a cool, freaking awesome car. It's interesting.
Yeah, that is certainly a really great benefit. I like the fact that I can start it in my garage and have it sit there and warm up and do all that stuff, and don't have to worry about suffocating the rest of my family because there's, you know, fumes coming through because we have an attached garage. So that's definitely a plus. Yeah, the electric, just the you know, one of the things that stands out to me the most is bringing it home on basically a half tank of fuel at the end of the day and plugging it in and waking up to a full tank. Like that's just, you just the psychology of like, if you have a regular car and your car is, you know, you drive home with a car or truck and you have a half tank of gas and you wake up and somebody overnight has filled up your car and now it's full. Like just try to imagine what would happen in your mind, but to have it happen like that every day, like that's still incredible to me.
How much do you appreciate not going to a gas station in New York, freezing cold, to get out and have the wind on the back of your neck or the snow or rain?
So I have 4 kids, all small children, and they want to go for rides at night. You know, after our son is the youngest, after he goes to bed, my daughter say, "Hey, can we go for a ride?" And the best part is half the time they're in their pajamas. They don't put shoes on. You know, we take one step from the garage into the car, we take off, we go out, we do our thing, we come right back and then go to bed. Yeah, I totally understand not having to get all stinky and freezing, and I enjoy it.
It's this is off of what we're talking about, but it's I don't know if you've experienced this, but I will be driving around and my girlfriend and I go to parks or we'll go for walks or hikes or something, things like that. And little children, like 5 years old, 4 years old, or around the neighborhood when I'm driving, and you'll see them waving or, "Oh, that's a Tesla." At what point in time do you ever have little kids that are like, "That car, that Toyota Camry is cool. That Honda Civic is cool." And to have your kids,
mm-hmm.
Have you experienced that at all yet?
I have. I don't know if it's TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or what, but kids, like you said, maybe age 6 and up, 6 to like 25, they have an affinity for it more than adults. You know, I've taken 2 small road trips. You know, you go to the superchargers on road trips, and the number of like minivans while I'm just sitting there doing my thing, eating, watching something on the screen, whatever, and a minivan will roll by and the back window will come down and I'll see little boys in there like pointing out at it, and I'll wave to all of them. Like I didn't think that I'd be a celebrity to these kids just sitting there, you know, charging up my car. But yeah, it's strange. That's not anything that I was even aware of.
It's such a different experience owning one. And just like the experience, like when you go through and buy a car, because you've bought several cars, like in terms of in the past, contrast that to like, what's the process like to like when you bought a Tesla? Because you order it and then you pick it up. So can you talk us through like that process and what that was like for you?
Yeah, so mine is my experience was slightly different from most new owners, only in that my car was already built. So mine came from the existing inventory. So the only difference between everything I'm about to say and somebody brand new is when you go to build your car on the website, you put in all the specifications you want, you drop $100, and then they go completely radio silent on you until you get that, you know, that famous text that we all get, "Prepare for delivery," which is exciting and nerve-wracking at the exact same time. So I knew mine actually came from a location in Washington, D.C. They brought it to New York City. And so it was just the process of like paying for it to having everything done was maybe 10 days. And so I knew what it was. I knew what was in it. It was, you know, what I wanted. And went through and filled out the paperwork. I did everything on my phone. Put the money down for it. Set up the financial agreement because I took out a small loan for the rest of it. And it was kind of like buying. I think it maybe took me more time to buy my last phone from Verizon than it did to buy this car. So like, there's a couple things I had to do. I had to take a picture of my license. I had to send a screenshot of my insurance form, stuff like that. But it was relatively simple. I had, a sales advisor who was working with me, who helped modify just a couple things. Like, my situation was unique because I had to pay for it to be moved from Washington, D.C. to New York. So it was $500 to do that. But other than that, it was there was hardly anything to it. Like, I don't know if you're going to ask this question or not, but like even from filling out all the paperwork to actually taking delivery of it, which we took delivery of our car in Brooklyn in New York City, it took me longer to go to the bathroom and fill up my water bottle in the owner's lounge than it did for me to sign the final paperwork to now the car is mine. Like, I think it was maybe 90 seconds start to finish, including the guy saying, "Hey, let me take a picture of you and your wife with my phone real quick." So it was just, yeah, it was like just unbelievable how streamlined and easy the process was.
And you don't have the maybe potential some uncomfortable conversations, like you're like, "Hey bro," the sales guy at the car dealership, you're like, "This is the price I wanted it at," and "Oh, let me talk to my finance manager," or trying to get you to buy something you don't want to buy. And going through this experience is just like going through the experience of never having to go to a gas station. You also went through an experience that is a little bit different than most people, where you went through, can you talk about, like, you went through a little bit different of a process? Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I actually, through some networking, I came across a guy who has, he used to work for them as a salesman and set up his own company. His name's Brandon. Electric Auto Squad is the name of his business. I don't know the exact URL, but he's a consultant that works to help people buy their first and second and third, if possible, electric vehicles. Just because, his specialty is with Tesla, but he does work with any car manufacturer who sells electric vehicles. And his specialty is to help you navigate just what that's going to be like. The transition from needing to go to a gas station to what type of charging setup do I need? He has a whole checklist of things to walk through the day that you take delivery that just helps out. And he helped me out with some of the language for looking for an existing car and things like that. And it was super helpful. If there was any uncertainty that I had or anxiety, he helped to take that away. So, and again, it was, this is the first car I'd bought in quite some time. We were actually, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, we were a single car family. So we had just our family van for about 13 months before we got this car, which was one of the blessings of COVID. Working from home was not having to really go anywhere. But yeah, I had not bought a car in several years. And so just thinking in the back of my head, like, not many people enjoy the car buying process at a dealership, like you said. And he helped me to take away the anxiety, but then just their process is pain-free.
And helps they answer and like all those questions that like people, because like if you're watching this and you haven't like ever owned an EV, like there's a lot of questions. You're like, how do I charge it? How do I pay for shit? Like I had a question over on TikTok, and when I poked to the supercharger, I made a little video, and somebody was like, how do you pay for that? Right? Where that's a question that you don't even think about once you own a Tesla, but just all done through the app, or like all these little things. So he helps, like, there's just like so many of those little questions. That's one example, but there's so many of them. And he helps like walk through that process of like, here, and these are things you just don't even think of until you're there, kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, he goes through all, I mean, it's so funny. I watched hundreds, I don't want to say thousands, but it's probably close to thousands, close to it, of videos, people who just answer questions like that. Actually, before I even knew you were doing TikTok videos, you showed up as a suggested video on YouTube, one of those small, like vertical, you can see it on your phone videos of you walking through autopilot. I'm like, I know this guy. I follow him on Instagram. So good work on your keywords for that. That was helpful. But yeah, there's a ton of people that do things like that. And even now, after owning it for 3 weeks, there's a whole set of new questions that have come to me. There's a couple things that I've thought about making videos for. I couldn't for the life of me get my wife's phone to work as a key. And so I figured out it was a real small setting in the iPhone settings that I needed to adjust that I couldn't find a video anywhere. So that's one of the cool things about them as a company, that they don't really do any marketing because their users are such fans. Like there's the Kevin Kelly article, 1,000 True Fans. Tesla owners are such fans of the product that they help each other out. They do the marketing for them. Yeah.
I literally had a neighbor stop by earlier, and he's like, I just wanted to show my wife your car. And then I took him for a ride like 2 or 3 hours ago. He's like, I literally just wanted to show my wife your car because he stopped by. He wanted to introduce himself. And so I just moved here and he stopped by, wanted to introduce himself. And he's like, I wanted to bring my wife over. I saw you were home. Like, I was like, cool.
Yeah. I'm like, each time I see these families, like what I told you before with the kids waving, if they roll down the window and want to take a picture or like talk or anything, want to go for a ride, I'll gladly take them. I actually, when I was discovering Sentry mode in my car, went out to eat at a restaurant like 10 o'clock at night, and I came back. It tells you on the screen that there was an event that took place. So I go to click the video to watch it. This kid, probably in his early 20s, had rolled up with his friends and was leaning up against the car getting his picture taken. And then it flashes the headlights and kind of makes a little noise. As soon as that happened, I saw him kind of jump and he took off and left. But I could see the flashes from the camera. He got his picture taken in front of it.
That's hilarious. So you mentioned, right? Like the sales process is so much easier. And basically you and I are selling the vehicles for them because we enjoy the product. So there's kind of like an incentive, like a referral program. When I bought my car, I've been following Tesla since 2010-ish. And I bought mine. I knew they had a referral program, and I completely forgot just because I was excited. I wanted to take delivery before December 31st. And I similarly bought something that was just in stock because I made a decision, and within like 10 or 12 days or something, I had the car. But I forgot to use a referral code. You used a referral code. So use my referral code. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
What was the benefit of that? But also, like, how do you use a referral code? Because some people who are watch, like, you and I spend a lot of time on the internet. Not everybody spends as much time on the internet and knows like how that all works. Can you talk to us about that in your experience?
Yeah. So I knew about it. Of course, following all those YouTube videos. Probably the most prominent guy is a guy named Andy Sly. He does really great, high quality videos. Does a bunch of drone footage of his. He bought one of the like first edition rear wheel drive long range Model 3s, and he would put in his description in his video, here's my referral code. And I kept hearing about this referral code. Well, the guy when they do the referral code, the person who does the referring. So Sam gave me you gave me your referral code. You get 1,000 free supercharging miles. I get 1,000 free supercharging miles. That costs Tesla like $20 to give that out. Like the price, even when I supercharge my car, that's the other thing. I use this third-party app called Stats, and you put in the price of gas in your area and then what your kilowatt hour usage is for your home, and it'll tell you how much money you're saving, like per week, per day, and it does all that. Like my car to charge basically from dead at my house is like $2.50. Supercharging, costs 2 to 3 times as much, but think about like charging your car for $7. Like it's nothing to them.
But in reality, you probably charge 85% of those miles, 95% of them at home where it is $2.
Yeah. So I mean, I was all keen to the program. When I first started thinking about it, I asked you for your code. And then I got so excited when it came time to buy that I forgot. And it was actually my sales advisor was like, hey, did you have any friends that referred you? And I said, yes. So I pinged you and said, hey, can you give me your code? And it's just a little feature in the app that there's a little like gift box in the upper right-hand corner. You go to click it and you can give people your referral link. It's just a, regular like shortened URL that you send out, and the sales advisor will put that in for you at the time of the sale. And you got a notification before I did because I hadn't taken delivery yet, but it was like within 10 minutes of accepting my car that it showed up saying I had 1,000 miles free in there. So thanks, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. I actually pulled this up in the background so that you can see, or hopefully not. When you come in here, it actually says Josh. It has your name
there he
here.
is.
And it says the delivery date when your car. I just saw this earlier today. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that it comes up there. But thank you. I want to thank you for your time and appreciate.
Hey, make sure you put that link in this video.
Yes,
get some more people as they come through.
If you guys found any value in this video, check out down below. Also, if anybody wants to and this is putting Josh on the spot because I did not check with him in advance, but feel free to say no. If somebody wants to reach out and ask about it, because once you own a vehicle for a while, some of the the newer things that comes to mind. Like when I first had it, I've made a ton of content around it, but I don't necessarily think about that the same way because I've had it for a year and a half at this point. So if somebody wants to reach out and ask you some questions, how is the best way to do that?
They can probably Instagram, just because that's been most consistent, just at Josh Crocker. They can find me on there. Yeah, you can send me a DM, and I'll help out. I do have a couple like problems, issues, challenges that I've not found answers to that I'm going to do some videos on myself.
Okay. So, and then, yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
What are the top 3 things that you've noticed that you're like, oh man, this is so much better than your previous vehicle?
I mean, autopilot is number 1. Just the ability for the car to drive itself. And it's not so much, speeding down the highway and having it keep to the road, but it's in like stop and go traffic that I found is the most useful. Like just, I went from one of my first cars was a standard transmission, which I love and will still gladly drive, any manual transmission vehicle, but just the constant, clutching and gas and back and forth and shifting when you're in like stop and go construction traffic versus, a regular vehicle that kind of creeps along to now this thing just does it all on its own. Like I can have a conversation with the person next to me and I'm not concerned about anything until we clear, the stoplight or the obstruction or whatever. That's been incredible to me. Probably number 2 is what I said before about like going to bed with a half tank and waking up with it full. And then the third is just so many little intuitive, like surprising things. Like I think in the 3 weeks I've had it, there's been 2 software updates, which is it's just cool. Like to know that there's improvements that have happened to the vehicle overnight.
Have you tested out the Summon on yours?
I actually don't have the full self-driving on mine.
Oh, you mentioned that.
And so I think this is something just for anybody who's getting a 2021. They have on some of the older vehicles, they'll have It's autopilot with convenience. Yeah, enhanced autopilot, which has some of those things. Like it'll do summon back and forward. It'll do lane change. It's either all or nothing now. So I know that at the time, like we're talking right now in middle April, I think in a month or 2, they're going to do autopilot full self-driving as a subscription to test out, which I'll probably, if I like that, then I'll probably drop the currently $10,000 to get the full self-driving permanently for the car. But yeah, I don't have any of those the summon features on mine yet.
That the autopilot and full self-driving that was my literally like the number 1 reason, as I mentioned at the beginning. What was your reason why? And it was just because it was so fascinatingly different than like anything and so many cool things. Mine was because the sole reason was because I wanted it to drive itself. I want to like not have to pay attention to that. That doesn't mean you need to be reckless or stupid, but like the fatigue, the subtle fatigue that most people don't even think about because they do it every day. But right, do you notice this? The fatigue is gone.
Like it's gone. And it's not something that you notice right away. It was more something just like maybe 2 hours after I'd stopped where I was going, I'm like, I feel way more awake right now than I normally would. You don't think about just how much of your conscious mind, like you said, your hand's always on the wheel. It'll start making all kinds of noises and flashes if you're not actively, paying attention. But just the amount of mental horsepower that you have just to keep the car on the road that you don't need to, it can go on standby instead of active.
It's very subtle, but it is, for me, that was like, that's the reason that I want it. Not because it's an EV, not because of any other reason. Those are all amazing. It's so cool in so many different ways. But it was like, to get rid of that piece of it and not have that, like for me, if I drive for 30 minutes, I get like, I'm yawning, even if it's 9 a.m. in the morning or 45 minutes somewhere above like the 30-minute mark, I feel like it's monotonous and I like start to yawn and stuff. And that was But we can continue to ramble on, I'm sure.
Yeah, we can, and we will. We'll get it in episode 2. Everybody, stay tuned for episode 2 of Tesla Fanboys here.
Yes, and post if you guys have any questions, leave them down below. Josh, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you, Tim.
And we'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.